She came to her sister's wedding alone and left as the target of the Russian Mafia. Jessica thought the worst thing that could happen that night was being humiliated by her rich family and her cheating ex-husband, but then a dangerous stranger in a black suit asked her to pretend to be his wife for one dance. Sounds crazy already, right? It gets worse, because that fake husband turned out to be a real mafia boss, and one photo from that wedding was enough to get armed men showing up at her apartment door. One dance, and her whole life exploded.
Her sister Sophia was a vision in a gown of white lace and pearl, wrapped with the boundless optimism of 23 years. From table 12, the designated outpost for family overflow, Jessica watched, seated near the chaos of kitchen doors where staff hurried by with champagne she could never afford. The Grand Marquis Ballroom was a monument to storybook weddings in downtown Chicago. A world of crystal, marble, and glass walls that showcased a city draped in lights, a place that hummed with the ghosts of old money and the promise of new life. A call had already gone out from the front desk. The security badge check had flagged him. 2 guards were en route. It had been 3 hours since she'd left Lily with Camilla, the shadow of her 5-year-old's disappointed face still etched behind her eyes. Lily had begged to come, to wear the little burgundy dress from the thrift store and witness her Aunt Sophia's wedding. But Camilla, her anchor and closest friend, had wisely counseled against it. Formal affairs and small children were a volatile mix. It was better for Lily to be at home, lost in her favorite films, safe from the inevitable tide of family judgment that was already closing in on Jessica. That judgment had begun at 7:30, the moment she entered alone, a 28-year-old single mother in a 2-year-old dress that held up, as long as no one looked too closely at the hem. Her cousin Vanessa had breezed past in the receiving line, a 7-month pregnancy displayed in designer maternity wear like a trophy. And Vanessa's husband, Jessica's ex-husband, offered a nod so fleeting it was barely a gesture at all. There he was, Tyler, the man who vanished when the test turned positive, who married her affluent cousin 6 months on, now standing across the room as if he hadn't shattered her entire world. Jessica, in turn, endured 12-hour shifts at Anne and Robert H. Lurie Children's Hospital, returning home to a daughter who wondered why she had no father, all while mentally tallying the overtime needed for next month's rent. "Jessica, darling, you didn't bring a guest?" The question came from her mother, her voice a perfect blend of feigned concern and genuine disappointment. She had materialized beside the table during cocktail hour with Jessica's father in tow, wearing the familiar, pained expression of a man forced to witness his daughter's shortcomings. "We thought you might have someone. You know the Martinelli family is here. Several of their sons are quite eligible. They own that string of restaurants." "I'm all right, Mom," Jessica said, forcing a smile that felt like cracking ice. "Lily sends her best to Sophia." "Ah, yes, the baby." Her mother's use of that word for a 5-year-old was a story in itself. "Camilla has her, I suppose. Such a pity you can't manage a proper nanny." They were gone before she could form a reply, moving on to guests who held more weight in their world. They mingled with family who had built lives of substance, her older sister Lauren, married to a surgeon, cousins armed with graduate degrees and stock options. And then there was Jessica, the pediatric nurse, the medical school dropout who traded a doctor's coat for motherhood, living in a 1-bedroom apartment in a part of town charitably called Up and Coming. In her pocket, her thumb had already pressed 911, leaving the line open for the dispatcher to trace, while a neighbor's text alerted the doorman. Giovanni had pleaded with her not to file a formal report, Not yet, not until they knew which faction would move to retaliate first. The dinner service was an eternity, 7 courses she could not taste as idle chatter eddied around her. The pair to her left debated their winter plans in Aspen. The woman opposite flashed an engagement ring worth more than half a year of her salary. Jessica smiled, she nodded, she wondered how long it would take for anyone to notice she was gone. Then the music swelled for the first dance. Sophia and her new husband seemed to drift across the floor. Her parents followed, a portrait of familial pride. Lauren and her husband were next. Soon, even the younger cousins were paired up, spinning beneath lights that softened every edge. Outside, the sky over the Chicago skyline had turned dark. The forecast had called for clear nights, but the heavens had their own script. A low rumble of thunder began to vibrate through the ballroom, a faint tremor beneath the music. Soon, rain was cascading down the glass panes, smearing the city lights into abstract paintings of color and sorrow. "May I have this dance?" The voice belonged to Tyler. It landed behind her like a physical blow, tightening every muscle in her body. She turned. He was standing there alone. Vanessa was likely holding court somewhere else. "No, thank you." She kept her voice flat. The practiced, professional tone she used on the pediatric floor with parents about to break. "Oh, come on, Jess. Just one for old time's sake." He was deploying the boyish charm that had once undone her, back before she understood it was his only currency. "We can be mature about this." "We are being mature, and my answer is no." She pivoted back to the dance floor, a clear dismissal. He didn't move. "You know, we don't have to be like this. I admit I made mistakes, but—" "Tyler." She rose from her chair, the pretense of politeness finally shattering. "Go back to your pregnant wife, dance with her, and leave me alone." "My pregnant wife," he shot back, "who is carrying my legitimate child." The charm evaporated, revealing the cruelty beneath. "Unlike the mistake that cost you a medical degree." A slap, a scream, a scene. Any of those would have been a worthy response. Instead, she just stood there, watching him walk away to rejoin Vanessa, who was now waiting for him by the dance floor's edge. From across the room, Vanessa's eyes met hers. One hand rested on her swollen belly. She smiled, the quiet, devastating smile of a victor. As the music softened to a slow romantic ballad, the floor filled with swaying couples, their gentle motions a stark contrast to the storm building inside Jessica's chest. She sank back into her chair at table 12, fighting the desperate urge not to weep in front of 200 people who already thought her a tragedy. It was then that she saw him. He was by the bar, separate from the throng yet commanding the space around him. He was tall, perhaps 6'3", with dark, closely cropped hair and the kind of physique forged in a gym. His suit was a flawless, tailored black, but it was his face that arrested her. High cheekbones, a jawline that looked as if it were hewn from granite, and eyes that, even from across the expanse of the ballroom, seemed to pierce through every wall she had ever built. He was watching her. It wasn't a casual glance, not the fleeting interest of a wedding guest. He was studying her, his focus so intense it should have felt threatening, but instead it sent an entirely different kind of tremor through her. She broke contact first, a flush of heat rising to her cheeks. When she risked another look, he was in conversation with a man from the groom's side, the older Martinelli brother, owner of a chain of Italian restaurants. After a brief exchange, the stranger started moving, purposefully, through the crowd toward her. Her first impulse was flight, to snatch her purse, and invent an excuse about her daughter. But something held her pinned to her seat at table 12 as he crossed the floor, moving with the quiet certainty of a man who had never in his life been denied. He came to a stop beside her table. Up close, his presence was overwhelming. The eyes she'd seen from afar were a warm, light brown, catching the chandelier light like amber. A faint scar cut across his chin on the right, a detail that only added to his severe appeal. He carried the scent of something expensive, of cedarwood and a darker, unknown spice. "You have been sitting here by yourself all night," he stated. His voice was laced with a faint accent, evoking images of old-world cinema and Italian villas. "It seems a terrible waste." "I'm fine," she heard herself say, her heart beginning to hammer against her ribs. "But thank you for your concern." "No," he said, "I do not think you are fine." He took the empty chair next to her, not asking, the motion smooth and deliberate. "I think you are in agony and you are trying desperately to hide it." The observation was so brutally accurate, it left her breathless. "You know nothing about me." "I know you are here alone at a family celebration where everyone else has a partner. I know the man who spoke to you moments ago left you wanting to vanish. And I know you have checked your phone every 15 minutes, contemplating your escape." The corner of his mouth lifted. Not quite a smile. "Am I mistaken?" "You're quite perceptive." She placed her phone on the table, suddenly seeing herself through his eyes, her misery laid bare. "Are you a friend of the bride or the groom?" "I am neither." "A business partner of the Martinellis, then." He inclined his head toward the family he'd been speaking with. "They extended the invitation. Giovanni Fioraldi." He offered his hand. When she took it, his palm was warm, his grip firm but not overpowering. "Jessica Reed." "Jessica," he repeated, as if the name itself had a flavor. "The sister of the bride, the one who came alone. In certain circles, word travels very quickly." His touch vanished, but his presence remained, an anchor in the swirling room. "I have a proposition for you, Jessica Reed," he murmured. A sane woman would have fled then, back to her world of duties and single motherhood, a world with no space for men in fine suits and dangerous eyes. Yet a voice she barely knew as her own asked, "What kind of proposition?" Giovanni leaned in, his voice a secret thread in the tapestry of sound. "Dance with me. Be my wife for tonight. Show them you are not alone." The host clears his throat. She stared, dumbfounded. To pretend marriage with a man she'd just met? "Why not?" he countered, his logic brutally simple. "It solves both our problems." His face was a mask, but a ghost of something flickered deep within his amber eyes. He laid his case bare. "My family pushes me to settle down. Yours, they seem to revel in your solitude. We could solve this for each other." Her mind screamed that it was madness. "Perhaps," he conceded, rising to offer his hand once more. His gaze drifted across the floor. "The music is beginning, and your ex-husband is watching. Let's give them a reason to stare." The logical answer, the safe one, was no. But logic had no place here tonight. She took his hand. One dance, she vowed, a promise to herself. His smile held a devastating beauty. "We'll see." He guided her to the floor, his confidence a tangible force, his palm a warm imprint against her dress, his hand holding hers with unexpected tenderness. He was a man built of solid force, yet his touch was a study in control. "You dance well," she observed as they moved the melody. His steps were flawless, a clear sign of training. My mother insisted, he explained, a shadow passing over his features as he spoke of her. She passed 2 years ago. Cancer. An apology felt like a hollow offering, but it was all she had. I'm sorry. His gaze, the color of warm amber, held hers. She would have liked you. She admired women who were their own foundation, women who chose a partner but never needed one. An edge entered her voice. And you think I'm choosing you? We're pretending. His reply was a quiet promise. For now. His hand tightened at her back, steering her into a turn. Pretense can become truth, he murmured, when desires are honestly spoken. Every instinct told her to break away, to remember this was just a game played for an audience that shouldn't matter. Instead, she leaned into his orbit, pulled by a warmth she hadn't realized she was missing. The music changed, but they did not part. All around them, familiar faces registered their surprise. Her own mother's shock was painted clearly across her face. Even her sister Lauren seemed more curious than critical for a change. And Tyler. He watched from the bar, his expression unreadable. Your ex-husband is quite captivated, Giovanni noted softly. She questioned how he could possibly know. He looked at you, Giovanni explained, like a man who discarded a treasure only to see its worth in another's hands. A muscle in his jaw clenched. Predictable men. Her defense was immediate. You don't know him. But Giovanni's insight was a blade. I know he left you, that he married your cousin, that he is undeserving of the sorrow you've been hiding. His voice was calm, but it was the calm of tempered steel. Am I wrong? The question hung between them. She had no argument to give. You're presumptuous, she managed. I prefer observant, he countered, steering her smoothly. And I am right. Her indignation flared. Being right isn't a license to be cruel. His response was simple. No, but honesty is. After a beat of silence, he offered a quiet apology for overstepping, admitting to a flaw, a need to fix what is broken. I'm not a problem, she insisted. No, he agreed, his thumb tracing a slow, intimate circle on her back. You're a woman who deserves better. Let me give you that. Just for tonight. As the music faded, applause filled the air. He let her go with a palpable reluctance before offering his arm. Your family will have questions. He was right. No sooner had they returned to the table, her cousin Sandra swooped in, eyes glinting. Jessica, you kept your guest a secret, she purred. Aren't you going to introduce us? Trying for a casual tone, Jessica made the introduction. This is Giovanni Fioraldi. Giovanni, my cousin Sandra. His smile in return was a polite, impenetrable mask. A pleasure. He complimented the wedding, and Sandra quickly clarified her distant relation. Her eyes, however, were doing a much closer appraisal, taking in every detail of his expensive attire. Are you from Chicago? She pressed. Now I am, he answered smoothly. Originally Naples. Business brought me here. His arm rested behind Jessica's chair, a gesture of both possession and protection. We've been seeing each other for a few months quietly. Jessica values her privacy. The fabrication was so flawless it almost felt true. Sandra stared, her mind visibly struggling to process this new reality. A few months? Sandra repeated, incredulous. You said nothing? Echoing his lie, Jessica claimed her preference for privacy, her hand finding a water glass to steady itself. Sandra's nod was filled with knowing pity. Of course. Still, you've landed well. She leaned in conspiratorially. He's gorgeous. Where did you meet? Before Jessica could invent a story, Giovanni supplied one. The hospital, he said, his voice laced with sincerity. Her quick thinking saved my partner's son." He then looked at her with such convincing affection that for a moment the air left her lungs. "I asked her for coffee to thank her," he continued. "She refused 3 times before agreeing." Sandra laughed. "That sounds like Jessica." And so the evening went. One relative after another approached, and with each one, Giovanni masterfully built their shared history from fragments of truth. He remembered every detail she'd shared. He knew her daughter Lily's name, her age of 5, her passion for drawing. He painted a picture so real. When they were finally alone again, she could only whisper, "You're very good at this." As the night wore on, she finally had her chance to question him. "At lying?" he asked, a slight curve to his lips. "A necessary skill in my world." A world he defined only as business. "Import and export," he clarified, his fingers finding hers. "Restaurants? The Martinellis are suppliers. That's why I'm here." She searched his face for any sign of deception. "Is that all?" His thumb stroked her palm. "Were you hoping for something more dangerous, more exciting?" Her reply was firm. "This isn't about excitement." She tried to withdraw her hand, but his grip was insistent, not forceful. "This is about surviving tonight," she clarified, "not being the family charity case." His voice softened, gaining intensity. "You're not charity, Jessica. You're a woman who works 12-hour shifts for sick children, who raises a daughter alone. That isn't pity, it's strength." His gaze was a fire that warmed her skin. But before she could respond, a shadow fell over them. Tyler. Her ex-husband stood there, his eyes fixed only on her. "Can we talk?" he asked. "Outside." Before she could refuse, Giovanni released her hand and rose. "It's fine. I need to speak with the Martinellis," he said, granting her an effortless exit. "Take your time." And then he was gone, leaving her trapped with the man who had broken her past. Tyler took the empty seat, his familiar cologne a suffocating presence. "Who is he?" he demanded, dismissing her ready-made story. "You would have told Camilla," he insisted, leaning in with a hunter's glint in his eye. "And Camilla tells everyone. I've been asking around." Nobody in the medical community knew of any Giovanni Fioraldi. He wasn't a part of that world, she explained. A partner's son had been a patient. A sudden deep exhaustion settled over her from the conversation. "Frankly, Tyler, who I am seeing is none of your business. You forfeited that right when you left me pregnant." "That was different. I wasn't ready to be a father." "But you're ready now, with Vanessa?" She gestured toward his wife across the room, a hand on her pregnant stomach. "Or is this baby more legitimate because she can afford the life you wanted?" Tyler's face darkened. "Don't act like you're better than us." "You're the one who shows up with some stranger, pretending you've moved on." And perhaps she had. The words felt strangely true as she said them. Giovanni was a fabrication, a fiction designed for one evening, but the desire to be happy was devastatingly real. "Happy?" Tyler's laugh was a cruel, bitter sound. "Just look at your life. You're a single mother living paycheck to paycheck. You work yourself to death and still can't afford decent care for our child. That man in the expensive suit isn't going to stay when he sees what a mess you truly are." The words hit their target, each a cold reminder of a known truth. Before she could form a reply, Giovanni reappeared by her side. "Is there a problem?" His voice was silk stretched over steel. "No problem," Tyler said, standing. "Just catching up with my ex-wife." Then you're finished. Giovanni's hand came to rest at her waist. The storm is getting worse. I'm going to drive Jessica home, unless you have an objection. It was not a question. Tyler looked between them, clearly wanting to protest, but even he seemed to recognize when he was outmatched. He walked away without another word. I can call a car, she said once he was out of sight. You don't have to. The rain is heavy. Allow me to drive you. Giovanni retrieved her clutch from the table. Unless you're uncomfortable being alone with me. She should have been. Every logical piece of her brain screamed that accepting a ride from a man she just met was foolish. But Giovanni didn't feel like a stranger. He felt like someone who saw her, flaws and all, and decided she was worth protecting anyway. Okay, she heard herself say. Thank you. The SUV waiting outside was sleek and black, with the driver already behind the wheel. Giovanni opened the back door for her, and she slid across leather seats that likely cost more than her monthly rent. He climbed in beside her, close but not crowding, and gave the driver her address before she could even ask how he knew where she lived. Your cousin Sandra mentioned it earlier, he explained, easily reading her expression. The building near the park. She was very proud of herself for knowing. The drive through Chicago's rain-soaked streets gave them a privacy the ballroom had not. City lights streaked past the tinted windows, blurring into abstract art. Thank you, she said at last, for tonight. For what I did. It was mutually beneficial. Giovanni turned to face her, his features cast in shadow. But I meant what I said earlier, about continuing this arrangement for a few weeks, until your family stops asking questions and mine stops pressuring me about marriage. That's insane. You said that before, and yet you agreed to dance with me. His hand found hers in the darkness between them. Think about it practically, Jessica. You need breathing room from family expectations. I need the same. We can help each other. By lying to everyone we know. By giving ourselves space to exist without constant judgment. He squeezed her hand gently. A few weeks, that's all. After that, we can stage a quiet breakup. No one gets hurt. Everyone gets relief. She knew she should say no. She knew this was a terrible idea that could only end badly. But sitting in that car, still feeling the ghost of his hand at her back from their dance, she found herself considering it. I have a 5-year-old daughter, she said finally. She can't know about this. I won't confuse her with fake relationships. Agreed, this stays between adults. And if either of us wants out, we walk away. No drama. Of course. Giovanni reached into his jacket and withdrew a business card. Think about it. Call me if you decide you want to take me up on the offer. The car pulled up to her building. Giovanni walked her to the door despite the rain, waited until she was inside, then returned to his vehicle. She watched from the lobby as the SUV disappeared into Chicago's stormy night. The card in her hand felt heavier than it should. She should throw it away, forget the whole evening, and go back to her life of 12-hour shifts, mounting bills, and being the family's favorite cautionary tale. Instead, she tucked the card into her clutch and headed upstairs, already knowing she was going to make a terrible decision. Monday morning arrived with the sharp buzz of her alarm at 6 o'clock. She dragged herself out of bed after 3 hours of restless sleep, her mind still replaying Saturday night in fragments. Giovanni's hand at her back. The way Tyler's face had darkened when he saw them together. That business card burning a hole in her wallet where she'd tucked it despite every logical reason to throw it away. Lily was already awake when she checked her room, building something elaborate with her blocks while humming a song she didn't recognize. Her daughter looked up with blue eyes that were pure Tyler genetics, though thankfully that's all she'd inherited from him. Morning, baby. Did you have fun with Camilla on Saturday? We made cookies and watched the princess movie 3 times. The girl abandoned her blocks to wrap her arms around her mother's legs. Camilla said you went to Aunt Sophia's wedding. Was it pretty? Very pretty. She kissed the top of her head, breathing in the baby shampoo scent that clung to her hair. Get dressed while I make breakfast, okay? We have to leave in 40 minutes. The 12-hour shift at Lurie Children's started at 7 o'clock sharp. She dropped Lily at her kindergarten program by 6:30, then fought Monday morning traffic to reach the hospital with 3 minutes to spare. The pediatric ward welcomed her with its familiar chaos of beeping monitors, worried parents, and the antiseptic smell that had become as common as breathing. Her phone started buzzing before she'd even finished morning rounds. Text after text from family members who'd apparently spent their Sunday discussing her mysterious appearance at the wedding with a man none of them knew existed. Her cousin Sandra. Call me ASAP. Need details about Giovanni. Lauren. Mom is losing her mind. Who is he? Why didn't you tell anyone? Even her mother, who barely texted, had sent a terse message. We need to talk about Saturday night. Your father and I are very concerned. She silenced her phone and shoved it into her scrubs pocket. Whatever fallout was coming from Saturday's performance could wait until she wasn't responsible for keeping small humans alive. The morning passed in a blur of IV checks, medication rounds, and comforting a 7-year-old girl who'd come in with a severe asthma attack. By noon, she'd managed to push thoughts of Giovanni and his ridiculous proposal to the back of her mind. This was her real life. Sick kids, overworked nurses, and the constant financial worry that never quieted. She was updating a patient chart when Tyler appeared in the hallway outside the nurse's station. He shouldn't have been able to get past security without a patient relation. But Tyler had always been good at talking his way into places he didn't belong. We need to talk, he said, planting himself in front of her, blocking her path. Now. I'm working, she replied, trying to step around him. And you're not supposed to be up here without authorization. I told them I was visiting my daughter. His jaw was tight. That vein in his temple throbbed the way it always did when he was angry. Which I should be able to do, by the way. You never let me see Lily. You never asked to see Lily. She kept her voice low, aware of the other nurses pretending not to listen. And she's not a patient here, so the excuse won't hold up if security checks. Tyler moved closer, lowering his voice. Who is Giovanni Fioraldi? And don't give me that hospital story again. I've been asking around. Nobody in Chicago's medical community has heard of him. Maybe, she cleared her throat. That's because he's not in the medical community. Maybe his life doesn't revolve around impressing people in your social circle. She finally managed to step around him. Now leave before I call security myself. Is he paying you? The question stopped her cold. She turned back slowly. Is that what this is? Some arrangement where he gives you money and you show up at events pretending to be his girlfriend? The accusation stung more than it should have. Get out, Tyler. Because that would make sense. You need the money. He clearly has it. And you've never been above taking handouts. I've never taken a dime from you or anyone else. Her hands clenched into fists at her sides. I work for everything I have, everything Lily has. So whatever fantasy you've constructed where I'm some desperate woman selling herself for financial security, you can keep it to yourself. Then what is he? Tyler demanded. What does he want from you? Nothing you ever wanted. That includes basic respect. She turned toward the nurse's station. Security, please. We have an unauthorized visitor. Tyler left before security arrived, but not before shooting her a look that promised this conversation was not over. She spent the rest of her shift shaking, adrenaline making her hands so unsteady she had to ask another nurse to help with an IV insertion. The clock struck 7, releasing her from her shift. She collected Lily from the after-school care, the child's bright chatter a stark contrast to the mother's churning thoughts during the slow crawl home. Every red light was a moment to dwell on Tyler's venom, on Giovanni's card resting like a quiet threat in her purse. On the razor's edge, she walked between her life and a choice she knew was a mistake. At 8, Camilla was there, a Tuesday ritual of takeout and worried eyes that promised questions Jessica wasn't ready for. And so she waited, letting the child's focus drift to dinner before her friend leaned in to shatter the calm. Your mother, Sandra, Lauren, they've all been calling, she began. They want to know about a Giovanni. Her own denial was a hollow thing, pushing noodles on a plate she couldn't eat. I'm not. It was just a favor, a dance at a wedding, a single night of pretending so my family would see something other than a failure. A favor? Camilla's skepticism was a sharp, rising thing. Jess, men like that don't do favors. What does he want from you? He just wanted his family to stop pushing him toward marriage, and I wanted mine to stop looking at me with pity. It was an arrangement for us both. A correction slipped out, a ghost of a truth. It is, maybe. He thought we should keep up the pretense for a little while, she confessed, until the questions died down. Camilla leaned back, the truth of the situation dawning on her. This is madness, Jess. You see that, don't you? I do, she admitted, finally meeting her friend's gaze. But you didn't see them on Saturday. You didn't feel their pity or Tyler's judgment like he had any right. For just one night I felt significant. Is that so wrong? Not wrong, Camilla said softly, reaching for her hand. Just dangerous. Please be careful. If this man is trouble, promise me you'll get out. I promise. The assurance was a lie before it even left her lips. She knew she would call him the second Camilla was gone. Her friend stayed until 9:30, a comforting presence as Lily was put to bed. Afterward, alone, she paced the kitchen, warring with herself over the fantasy she was clinging to, knowing it was doomed to shatter. The debate was still raging in her mind at 10:15 when a heavy, insistent knock came at her door, not the familiar rap of a neighbor. Through the peephole, 2 figures stood like omens in the dim hallway, clad in dark clothes with faces of stone, one bearing a tattoo that snaked up his throat. Jessica Reed. The voice was cold, accented. We have to discuss Giovanni Fioraldi. A primal fear screamed at her to stay silent, to pretend no one was home. I don't know anyone by that name. A phone was raised, displaying a picture from the wedding, an image of a perfect lie. There she was, in Giovanni's arms, the two of them lost in a moment that looked so real. You're his woman, the man said. That gives us an interest in you. I'm not anything to him, she countered, her voice thin. We're just friends. Her fingers found her own phone, a flimsy shield. If you don't go, I'm calling the cops. Go ahead and call, the tall one said with a shrug. We'll be gone when they get here, but we will return, Jessica Reed, and we expect you to be more willing to talk. Mr. Volkov dislikes being ignored. With that, they turned and walked away, leaving her to tremble behind the door, her heart a frantic drum against her ribs. She was left alone with a name she didn't know, and a fear that was colder and deeper than anything she had ever felt. In that moment, she understood with chilling certainty that this was no longer a game. This was something real, something terrifying. She pulled Giovanni's card from her wallet, the silver lettering a beacon in the dark. This was her chance to retreat, to tell him it was over before it truly began, because the shadows from his world were now at her door. But instead of running, she pressed the numbers. He picked up almost immediately. Jessica? The words poured out of her in a frantic rush. 2 men were here. They had pictures. They mentioned a man named Volkov and said they would be back. A heavy silence hung on the line. Then his voice, calm and absolute. Lock the door. Open it for no one. I'm 15 minutes away. Giovanni, what is this? Who are they? I will explain everything when I arrive. Stay put and keep Lily with you. The call ended. She secured the locks, then looked in on her daughter, sleeping soundly, unaware that her mother had just gambled with both their lives. 14 minutes later, he was there. Through the peephole, she saw him, and beside him, a man built like a mountain. This is my associate, Franco, Giovanni said, stepping inside without an invitation. His gaze swept her tiny apartment, not seeing a home, but assessing a tactical situation. He demanded to know exactly what was said. As she recounted the visit, Franco took up a watch by the window, his presence a silent testament to the danger. With every word she spoke, Giovanni's face hardened, the scar on his chin a pale line against his tightening jaw. The Bratva, he stated finally, a Russian syndicate. They're making a move on territory that isn't theirs. Someone sent them the wedding photos. Someone told them you belong to me. How could they? She asked, a whisper. We've known each other for days. But the memory of his touch, of that dance, rose up to betray her. It had been so simple to believe the beautiful illusion. They don't operate on truth, Giovanni explained, turning from a quiet, rapid exchange in Italian with Franco. They operate on leverage. I am to blame. I should have seen this coming. What is it they want? They want to use you to break me, to force my hand in a deal I cannot afford to lose. His gaze held hers, full of a regret that offered no comfort. Jessica, I am sorry. You were never meant to be part of this. Then let's stop it, she pleaded. We can tell them it's not real. It's too late, Franco's voice cut in, gravelly and final. They have already made you his weakness. The truth of your relationship is irrelevant now. Her strength gave out, and she collapsed onto the couch. What do we do now? Giovanni knelt before her, forcing her to see the gravity in his eyes. Now I protect you, both you and Lily, but I need your absolute trust. Can you give me that? Every rational thought screamed for her to say no, to expel him and his violence from her life, but caught in the depths of his gaze, she heard a single fateful word escape her lips. Yes. Within 30 minutes, 2 bags were packed while her daughter slept, dreaming innocent dreams, oblivious to the fact her mother had just enlisted them in a quiet war. Camilla showed up 20 minutes after the call, her face etched with fear, but her hands moving with practiced calm, a friend who had seen her through so many other storms. Is this temporary? She whispered, packing Lily's cherished toys. Tell me you aren't really caught up in this. It was supposed to be, Jessica replied, her hands stuffing clothes into a bag. It was supposed to be a fake romance for a couple of weeks. Now the Russian mob believes I'm a bargaining chip. The Russian mob. The words made Camilla sink onto the edge of the child's bed. Oh, Jess, what have you done? I don't know. Her hands were shaking as she zipped the duffel. He says he can protect us. That's the only thing that matters. Giovanni's home was a fortress in the sky, occupying the summit of a high-rise on the Gold Coast, its address alone worth more than she would earn in 10 years. Franco drove them in a black SUV with windows that showed nothing, his path a winding, deliberate effort to shed any tail. Giovanni followed in another car, flanked by men whose existence she hadn't known of an hour before. The elevator opened with a private key, revealing a cold, perfect space from a design magazine with sweeping views of the lake. The art on the walls was real, the furniture untouchable. It was a world of sterile luxury, the complete antithesis of the small, warm apartment she had just fled. The guest suites are upstairs, Giovanni said, indicating a staircase that seemed to hang in midair. 3 of them! Take your pick. Camilla, there is a room for you too. I have to stay? Her friend asked, eyes wide. Yes, Giovanni's reply was flat, leaving no space to argue. Until this threat is neutralized, anyone close to Jessica is now a target. That means you. How long will that be? She asked, her grip tightening on Lily's bag. Days, weeks, she protested, clinging to the routine of work and school, a life that didn't halt just because he'd made arrangements. But Giovanni gently silenced her. A favor had been called in. She was now on paid family emergency leave for the next 2 weeks. Lily's school was informed of a family situation, and a private tutor would ensure she kept up. Jessica's indignation rose. He had no right, but his response was absolute. His right was to keep her alive. His amber eyes captured hers, a silent declaration. This was his world, governed by his rules, and his rules dictated that civilians caught in the crossfire of his making were not left to chance. A sleepy murmur from Lily, nestled in her mother's arms, was enough to soften Giovanni's entire demeanor. He suggested they get the child settled, deferring their conflict until morning. The bedroom he showed them to was a sanctuary, easily double the size of her living room, dominated by a king-sized bed draped in impossibly fine linens. A connecting bathroom boasted a multi-headed shower and a deep soaking tub. As Jessica laid her down, Lily's eyes fluttered open, her 5-year-old gaze taking in the new grand surroundings with drowsy confusion. "Where are we?" she mumbled. "A friend's house, baby," Jessica whispered back. "We're having a sleepover." She brushed a stray hair from Lily's forehead. "Go back to sleep," she urged. Within seconds, the child was lost to dreams, clutching her stuffed rabbit. Giovanni stood in the threshold, his expression a mystery. "She's beautiful," he said, his voice low. "She has your eyes." The words carried a sting of memory. "She has her father's everything else," Jessica replied, tucking the blanket tighter, "which is probably for the best." Giovanni moved into the room, silent for a man of his stature, his gaze fixed on Lily with an authentic interest that was so rarely shown by those without children of their own. "How old is she?" he asked. 5, Jessica answered, smoothing the blanket again, needing an anchor for her hands. "She'll be 6 in March. She's brilliant, loves to read, adores dinosaurs, and asks questions I can't always answer." His curiosity was genuine. "Like what?" A raw truth escaped her. Like why her daddy doesn't visit, or why she only has one parent when other kids have 2. The words hung in the air, heavy with a history of disappointment. Giovanni's jaw tightened. He's a fool. He's many things, she conceded. Fool is perhaps the kindest. A strange, shared intimacy settled between them as they watched the little girl sleep. It was a silent vigil over her daughter, one that positioned them not as strangers bound by crisis, but as partners in her protection. I should let you rest, Giovanni finally said, moving toward the door. Use the intercom if you need anything. Just before he left, she stopped him. Giovanni, thank you. The gratitude was for something she didn't fully grasp yet, a safety she couldn't define. A flicker of something profound crossed his features. I will always keep her safe, Jessica. Both of you. That's a promise. And with that, the next 3 days unfolded in a haze, a surreal departure from the life she knew. Wednesday morning, Jessica awoke to find Lily already exploring the penthouse with a child's boundless curiosity. Camilla was preparing breakfast while Giovanni, sequestered in his study, conducted a meeting in rapid-fire Italian that sounded both elegant and menacing. At 10 o'clock, a pediatrician arrived for a full checkup on Lily. The doctor was gentle, accustomed to anxious mothers, and Giovanni himself appeared, asking sharp questions about vaccination schedules and a recent cold, the details of which Jessica had only mentioned in passing. You remembered I mentioned a cold? She asked after the doctor had gone. You said she missed school 2 weeks ago, he replied simply, handing Lily a tablet full of games. I pay attention, Jessica. Thursday introduced a private tutor, a warm woman named Mrs. Patel, who had Lily captivated by lessons. Giovanni observed for a time, then astonishingly joined in on a drawing project, sketching a detailed horse with a trained hand and showing Lily the proper technique for shading. My mother insisted on art lessons, he explained, his large hand guiding Lily's small one. She believed in an education of beauty and business. From the kitchen, Jessica and Camilla watched this unexpected scene unfold. They saw how he knelt to her level, how he praised her efforts without a hint of condescension, his patience unwavering. He's good with her, Camilla noted quietly. Surprisingly so. And that simple truth was more terrifying to Jessica than any mobster, because Lily was already asking when they could visit Mr. Giovanni's house again. She was already drawing pictures of a tall, dark-haired man standing beside them, unwittingly filling a father-shaped void Jessica had spent 5 years pretending wasn't there. The undeniable tension between them, first felt at the wedding, now crackled in the close quarters. Giovanni was a constant, powerful presence, the fluid way he moved, the scent of cedar that clung to him, the commanding timbre of his voice on the phone. They dined together each night, a strange, temporary family. Giovanni would ask Lily about her day, listening intently. After Lily was asleep, they would talk on the terrace, the city lights below them, about anything but the danger that held them there. He spoke of his mother, Sophia, taken by cancer when he was 33. He described a slow, painful goodbye that was never long enough, and the promise she'd extracted from him to find a woman who would challenge him, not just accept his dark world. She would have liked you, he told her on their 3rd night, his voice hushed by the late hour. She respected women who stood on their own, he continued. She came from nothing, married my father at 19, and forged herself into a woman who could command his world. Jessica finally asked the question that had been lingering since that first night. What world is that? Giovanni paused, sipping his wine. He owned restaurants, he explained. 4 successful Italian establishments. That part was public record. But he also managed operations off the books, territories his father had secured, a legacy he now maintained. "You're Mafia," she stated, the words hanging plain between them. A faint smile touched his lips. "I prefer community organization with flexible ethics. But yes, my family has run Chicago's less legitimate businesses for 3 generations. The restaurants were real, but everything else existed in the shadows. And the Russians. They want those shadows," he said, his tone hardening. They were pushing boundaries, using violence where his father would have used diplomacy. "I'm trying to keep the peace. They see that as a weakness." On Friday afternoon, Franco entered the study with a grim look. "We've found the leak," he announced without preamble. The source of the photos, the one who told the Bratva about Jessica. Giovanni rose from his desk, his posture rigid. "Who?" Franco's words were a blow. "Her cousin, David Reed. He's been feeding the Russians information for 6 months. When he saw the wedding photos on social media, he recognized an opportunity." Jessica felt the world tilt. "David? My cousin?" Franco confirmed it. David had told the Bratva about their arrangement, about the pretense, but their leader, Dmitry Volkov, saw her as useful leverage all the same. "Where is he now?" Giovanni's voice was ice. That was the complication. The Russians had him, holding him as insurance. If Giovanni moved against them, they would execute David to send a message. The room spun. Stupid, gambling-addicted David, who'd begged her for money at Thanksgiving and sold his own family to criminals to cover his debts. "To abandon him isn't an option," she heard herself insist. "He's a fool, but he is our blood." Giovanni's face was a mask as he countered. "He endangered you and Lily." She met his gaze. "Family isn't conditional on loyalty, Jessica." "Nor on wisdom," she retorted. "What would your mother do?" The question hit its mark. His jaw tightened before he commanded Franco, "Arrange a sit-down with Volkov. I'll hear his terms." Franco cautioned, "It's a trap." "I know," Giovanni replied, his eyes finding hers. "But it seems I've chosen a terrible moment to grow a soul." They arrived at a warehouse in Chicago's industrial sector, the scent of the lake cutting through the vehicle's climate control. The Friday evening air was cold, with low-hanging clouds promising a rain that held its breath. Beside her sat Giovanni, a figure of both sanctuary and dread. "You can wait here," he offered for the 3rd time. "Franco and I will see to it." "I was the bait," she stated. "I'll be there for the negotiation." A text from Camilla confirmed Lily was sleeping. It asked about her return home. Home. A word she now associated with his penthouse after only 5 days. "You said she'd want them to see I wasn't just a piece on their board," Jessica reminded him. "My mother," he mused, his hand finding hers in the dim light, "would have many thoughts, most expressed in language not meant for you." "I've worked 3 years in a hospital," she challenged. "I can handle it." The warehouse emerged from the gloom, a hulk of rusted concrete, its windows opaque with filth. 2 black sedans waited, men loitering beside them with the lazy posture of those accustomed to brutality. Franco stepped out, his survey of the surroundings swift and professional, followed by a nod. They emerged into air thick with the taste of steel and decay. A silent Russian beckoned them through the warehouse door into a scene torn from cinema. It was a cavern of stacked containers and weak, dusty light. In the center sat a simple folding table and 3 chairs where 2 men waited. She knew the younger one, the harbinger of threats from that Tuesday. The elder, then, could only be Dmitry Volkov. He was in his late 50s, his gray hair in a severe military cut, his eyes possessing a chill born from a lifetime perfecting cruelty. Mr. Fioraldi. Volkov's accented English was sharp. You brought the woman, a very American gesture. Jessica chose to be present, Giovanni stated, pulling out her chair before taking his own. This concerns her. Only because you allowed it to, Volkov retorted, his assessing gaze landing on her. A lovely prize. I understand the public claim. Our intelligence, however, suggests the arrangement was a charade. Our origins are irrelevant, Jessica interjected, cutting off Giovanni. Your leverage is me, so I belong in this discussion. The younger man's chuckle was cut short by a glacial stare from Volkov. Audacious, the old man observed, reclining slightly. Your cousin David spoke of your pride, the reason you denied him funds. His voice dropped. Do you know David's whereabouts, Jessica Reed? Franco said he's with you. Indeed, in a nearby cellar. He has a $30,000 debt. We presented a solution. He provided details on your family and this wedding. Volkov produced a phone, tapped the screen, and displayed it. Lovely images, such a happy couple. It was a picture of them dancing. The look they shared was so genuine, so utterly unstaged. It felt like a memory of a truth that never was. David chose his path. Giovanni's tone was calm but layered with iron. His debt is his own affair. Jessica, however, is ours. Volkov put the phone away. Which gives her value. Let us speak of terms. We desire your 3 blocks in the financial district. For them, you get David back, and we cease leveraging the nurse. No. The refusal escaped her, an involuntary sound that made both mob bosses stare in unified shock. You cannot threaten a family and then pretend this is a reasonable negotiation. Jessica, Giovanni began. No. She was on her feet, fueled by an adrenaline that silenced all self-preservation. Threaten him, if you must. That is the life you lead. But you invaded my apartment. You brought fear to the home where my 5-year-old daughter sleeps. You have my foolish cousin who does not merit your basement justice. Her hands pressed into the table, anchoring her rage. What kind of man makes war on a child's sleep? What empire is built on the terror of women? The question hung in the sudden silence. Do you believe shame is a weapon against me? Volkov's voice was flat, but a dangerous light sparked in his eyes. We deal in outcomes, Miss Reed, not sentiment. Then here is your outcome now, she declared, the lie metallic on her tongue. I am no longer afraid of you. You hope to use me to break him? You have succeeded only in showing me your true face. And I would see this world burn before you gain an inch from my fear. Slowly, Giovanni rose, placing himself as a partial shield before her. Jessica's words are my own, but I have a counteroffer. You want the territory. The 3 blocks are yours. In return, the Bratva signs a formal treaty. No more threats to non-combatants. No more abducting family. No more visits where children sleep. You would simply concede. Volkov searched their faces for the deception. I would give you a holding I intended to liquidate. The city is rezoning those blocks next month. Their commercial value is about to collapse. Giovanni's face betrayed nothing. Take them. The burden of their collapse will be yours, and in exchange, we draw a line. You keep to your territory, we keep to ours, and civilians are never to be touched again. After a long silence, Volkov's eyes returned to Jessica. She has spirit, reckless but spirit. He rose. Terms accepted. 3 blocks, a treaty, and civilians are sacrosanct. He offered his hand. And Mr. Fioraldi, a piece of advice. If this union began as a fiction, you should make it fact. A woman who confronts power with truth is a rare find. My wife was such a woman. I was wise enough not to lose her. Their handshake was brief, sealing an accord with practiced finality. David would be free within the hour, left at a hospital and forbidden contact for 6 months. The territory would be transferred by week's end. They stepped from the warehouse into a fine, misting rain. Her strength failed her at the SUV, the adrenaline leaving her system in a jarring crash. Giovanni caught her, settling her into the car. That was the single most courageous or idiotic act I have ever seen. Franco's voice came from the driver's seat as the car moved. I haven't determined which yet. Both, she whispered. It was both. Giovanni turned to her fully. You defied Dmitry Volkov. Do you grasp the significance of that? Of speaking to him in that manner and surviving? Survival wasn't on my mind, she confessed, her hands trembling. I saw Lily safe in your home. I saw David in that cellar. I felt the exhaustion of powerful men drawing lines between the safe and the sacrificed. I am a pediatric nurse, Giovanni. I spend my life saving children. Then he kissed her. Her panic dissolved as his lips met hers, a searing, insistent pressure that tasted of all the forbidden desires she'd suppressed. One hand cradled her face, his thumb stroking her skin, while the other pulled her across the seat until no space remained between them. She responded in kind, channeling 5 days of terror and burgeoning hope into the kiss. He moved with an expert's certainty, and her body answered with a raw need that defied the presence of Franco, who was suddenly very focused on the road. When they finally separated, breathless, he pressed his forehead to hers. I've yearned for this from the moment you glanced up at me from table 12 and said yes to a dance, he confessed, his voice barely a whisper. Since you stood in my home with your child in your arms, admitting you couldn't trust easily, yet you would trust me with her life. Since you faced down a Russian mob boss in a desolate warehouse, declaring he would not threaten children in your city. My city, I corrected him. This world belongs to you, not me. Perhaps, but you just proved you can stand within it and not be consumed. His thumb traced the line of my bottom lip. Jessica, this charade ended somewhere between Saturday and this very moment. You feel that, don't you? I did. I had felt it watching him sketch horses with Lily when he clutched my hand while speaking of his mother, when I drifted to sleep on his terrace to the sound of his Italian, feeling more secure than I had in 5 years. This is so complicated, I breathed. Anything worthwhile is, he murmured, kissing me again, this time a gentle promise, not a demand. Stay, not for your safety, not because of some bargain struck at a wedding. Stay because you need to know where this leads now that it's real. The SUV slowed to a stop before the penthouse. A quiet cough from Franco served as a reminder of our audience and of the 5-year-old asleep upstairs. I have a daughter, I reminded him. If this shatters, she gets hurt alongside me. Then we will not let it shatter. Giovanni helped me from the car. One day at a time, he said. One choice at a time. It begins with you accepting that tonight altered everything. We rode the elevator in silence. Camilla met us at the entrance, her gaze sweeping over my face before she wisely asked nothing at all. She collected her coat, allowing Franco to see her home, leaving Giovanni and me alone in the vast living room at midnight. The gravity of what had transpired began to settle around us. I should go see Lily, I said. You should. He made no move to detain me. But Jessica, consider what I offered about staying, not as a temporary guest, but as someone who has a place here. I climbed the stairs to find Lily in a deep, peaceful sleep, entirely oblivious to the fact her mother had just bargained with criminals and kissed a man who made her forget every single reason she should not. I watched the steady rise and fall of her chest, this perfect child I had made with a man who was never worthy of her. And I wondered if I possessed the courage to risk both of our hearts on a man who just might be. Downstairs, Giovanni was waiting. Upstairs, my daughter was dreaming. And somewhere on the staircase between them, I came to a decision that filled me with more dread than any Russian enforcer ever could. I was falling for Giovanni Fioraldi. And for the first time since Tyler left, I was going to allow myself to follow that fall and see where I might land. Sunday morning's first light spilled through the penthouse windows, stirring me before my alarm. My mind had spent the night replaying the kiss from Friday, the warehouse, the calculating gaze of Dmitry Volkov, the intensity in Giovanni's eyes when he'd said, "This stopped being fake somewhere along the way." I found him in the kitchen brewing coffee, already dressed, though it was barely 8 o'clock. With Lily still asleep, we were afforded a rare, quiet moment. "We have to talk," he stated, passing me a mug, "about our next move." That's what I was thinking, too. My hands curled around the warm porcelain. This entire arrangement was meant to be fleeting. A few weeks of a facade until our families relented. But now things are tangled. Giovanni leaned at the counter, his amber eyes, which always saw too much, fixed on me. "Franco confirmed this morning that David has been discharged from the hospital. He's been instructed to avoid Chicago for the next 6 months. The Bratva situation has been diffused. The truce is intact. This means you and Lily are now safe to go back to your own lives." Those words should have felt like a liberation. Instead, they echoed like a final, closing door. "So it's over. The danger is gone. The arrangement is concluded." I fought to keep my tone even. "Thank you for your hospitality. I guess I'll see you. That is one possibility." Giovanni put his mug down. "But I have another to propose. Franco knows people who specialize in new beginnings, flawless documents, a new city, a new existence. I can provide complete protection for you and Lily. Establish you somewhere far from here, where Tyler, or anyone from my life, could never find you. Financial stability, a clean slate, everything you could possibly need. You're offering to help us vanish." The thought was a splash of icy water to get us away from your world, to provide you with an option that doesn't chain you to danger out of a sense of duty. His features were a carefully constructed mask of neutrality. "I dragged you into this chaos, Jessica. The least I can offer is a clean way out." Before I could form a reply, the sound of small feet came racing down the stairs. Lily appeared in her pajamas, hair a sleepy mess, a stuffed rabbit clutched in her hand. "Morning, Mom." "Morning, Mr. Giovanni." She hoisted herself onto a stool at the island. "Are you making pancakes?" "Mr. Giovanni makes the best pancakes." "I can indeed make pancakes," Giovanni confirmed, already gathering ingredients. "Do we want chocolate chip or blueberry?" "Both," Lily declared, bouncing on her seat. "Mom, can we live here always? I really like it here." And Mr. Giovanni promised he'd teach me how to draw buildings today. My heart fractured. "Sweetheart, we've been taking advantage of Mr. Giovanni's kindness. We can't stay here forever." "But why not?" she asked, looking between us with the simple logic of a 5-year-old. "He has so many extra rooms." And you don't mind, right, Mr. Giovanni? His gaze locked with mine over her head. I don't mind in the slightest. Lily, my love, go wash up before you eat, I said softly. She slid from the stool and ran towards the bathroom, leaving us alone once more. She's already grown attached to you, I said, my voice low. That is precisely what I feared. If we go now, she will have questions I have no answers for. So don't go. Giovanni started mixing the batter with an effortless rhythm. Stay. Let's discover what this can be. When there is no pretense, no obligation for protection, just two people who might genuinely want to see this through. You run a criminal syndicate, Giovanni. You make deals with mob bosses. You have rivals who would see me and Lily as pawns if they knew we mattered to you. My grip on the mug tightened. How can I possibly build a life for us inside that kind of constant threat? By realizing my world is not something separate from me. It is a part of who I am. But so is the man who prepares breakfast for your daughter and wants to show her how to design buildings. The man who spent 3 sleepless nights poring over security protocols so you could rest without fear. The man who would set fire to half of this city before he let anything harm you. He poured the batter onto the hot griddle. I am not asking you to embrace the criminal. I am asking if you can accept the whole, complicated truth of the man I am. Lily returned before I could respond, chattering about her drawing lesson and asking for extra chocolate chips. We ate our breakfast, looking for all the world like a family, and the sheer domesticity of the moment frightened me more than any armed standoff, because it felt so right, so easy, as if this had been our routine for years, not mere days. After we ate, I came to a decision. I am going back to work tomorrow, to my normal shift at the hospital. Giovanni's head snapped up. That may not be the wisest course of action. The truce is still fragile. We are not sure. I have to do this, I cut in. I need to feel like I can still have a normal life, to prove I am not just a woman hiding in your tower, awaiting the next danger. If this has any chance of working, if we have a chance, I must hold on to a piece of the person I was before this started. He watched me for a long, quiet moment. In that case, you will have a driver and a security detail at the hospital. This is not negotiable. Fine. I was learning which battles to fight, but they need to be invisible. I will not have bodyguards trailing me through the children's wing. Monday morning brought with it a familiar tempo. I took Lily to kindergarten, gave her a kiss goodbye, then made my way to Lurie Children's for my first shift in more than a week. The hospital welcomed me with its standard blend of organized chaos. Frightened children, anxious parents, the sterile scent and the symphony of monitors that had long ago become my other home. My supervisor intercepted me immediately. Jessica, it's wonderful to have you back. Is your family situation sorted out? It is. Thank you again for your patience. Of course. Actually, one of our largest donors reached out to us about you, a very generous man. He wanted to ensure your job was held for you while you were away. She offered a knowing smile. Your new man must be well connected. I offered no correction. It was simpler to let them believe what they would than to attempt to explain the impossible truth. My shift unfolded in its usual rhythm. Checking IVs, distributing medications, consoling a 3-year-old with pneumonia. Sometime around 2 p.m, I was called to the room of one of our long-term cases. 7-year-old Marcus had been battling leukemia for 8 long months. He was here for another round of chemotherapy, exhausted but still impossibly bright. "Nurse Jessica!" His face lit up as I came in. "You're back. I missed you. I missed you too, champ." I took his vitals, logging them on his chart. "How are you holding up today?" "Tired. But my mom says I'm a warrior." His small hands worried the edge of the hospital blanket. "Nurse Jessica, could I ask you a question?" "Of course. Do you think there are happy endings, the kind they show in films?" The query struck with an unexpected weight. I perched on his bed, searching for the right words. "I think happiness is for those who are courageous enough to chase it." Clears throat, especially when fear sets in, when letting go feels like the only option. My mom says that too, that we need to be brave. And then Marcus met my gaze, his eyes holding a wisdom far beyond his 7 years. "Are you being brave right now, Nurse Jessica?" From the innocence of a child. "Yes, Marcus, I believe I am." "Then your happy ending will find you, just like mine will." His certainty was a force of nature. We are both fighters, after all. I walked from his room, tears burning behind my eyes, with a focus I hadn't possessed in days. Marcus fought for his very breath each day, and I was faltering in the fight for my own joy, all because it was tangled in difficulty. My shift concluded at 7. In the parking garage, I sent Giovanni a text telling him I was leaving. The October air had found its winter chill, my every breath a pale ghost in the garage's gloom. The security cameras saw it all, and hospital guards arrived just 30 seconds after he had gone. It was then that Tyler materialized, emerging from the shadows between two vehicles. "We have to talk." His voice was a taut wire of restrained fury. "About this new man of yours, and the fascinating things I've learned about him." "Tyler, I won't do this here." I tried to walk toward my car. "Go to your pregnant wife." He caught my arm. It wasn't enough to cause pain, but it was enough to hold me there. Giovanni Fioraldi is the proprietor of 4 Italian restaurants and is also believed to direct criminal enterprises in Chicago's financial sector. Were you aware of that? Or did the money just make your principles seem flexible? Release me. I wrenched my arm away. "My dating life is not your concern. It is when my daughter is being exposed to that element." Tyler closed the distance. "That's right. She is my daughter still, no matter how hard you've tried to write me out of her story. And I refuse to let you pull her into a gangster's orbit. Your daughter." A rage that had been buried for 5 long years finally broke the surface. "You left when I was carrying her. You wed my cousin. You've not once asked for Lily, never sent a cent for her care, never feigned the slightest desire to be her father. You don't get to claim concern for her safety just to fuel your self-righteous anger. I care enough to keep her from repeating your mistakes, from getting tangled up with the wrong sort of man and destroying her life." Tyler's expression warped into something vile. "I'm reporting this to the authorities. I'll tell them everything I have on Fioraldi. And after his arrest, I will sue for custody of Lily, establishing you as an unfit mother who puts her own child in harm's way." A cold dread extinguished my fury. "You wouldn't. Just watch." Tyler started to walk away. "Leave him, Jess, or you'll lose her. That will not be an issue." Giovanni's voice sliced through the tension. He stepped out from the darkness by the elevator, Franco at his side. The two of them moved with the fluid lethality of predators closing in on their mark. The color drained from Tyler's face. "This is harassment. I'm calling security. I encourage you to do so. Giovanni halted a few feet from him, his hands in his pockets and his stance casual, but his eyes were pure ice. I would welcome the chance to tell security why you're menacing my girlfriend in this garage after physically restraining her. I didn't even touch her. The security footage might suggest otherwise. Franco nodded to a corner where a camera was visibly mounted. The city of Chicago prosecutes assault with vigor, especially when it involves a former husband who refuses to accept he has lost all influence. You can't intimidate me. But a tremor had entered Tyler's voice. This isn't a threat. Giovanni took another step. It is an education in consequences. Franco. From his jacket, Franco produced an envelope. Tyler James Mitchell. Inside is a thorough accounting of your delinquent child support for Lily Reed. 5 years of proven desertion. A legal motion for all back payments with interest, totaling some $43,000. And a restraining order, which will be filed should you persist in harassing Jessica. Tyler ripped the envelope from his hand. I never consented to pay support. Because you vanished before she had a chance to file. Giovanni's tone was glacial. But abandonment does not negate obligation. My legal counsel is exceptionally meticulous. He is ready to litigate this through every channel. And believe me, Tyler, you cannot afford a war against an opponent whose lawyers are better than your excuses. Are you threatening me with a lawsuit? Tyler's gaze darted between them. I'll contest this, by all means. Giovanni's smile was a chilling sight. Take it to court. Let a judge review your total disengagement from your daughter's existence. Let them hear how you married Jessica's cousin 6 months after leaving a pregnant woman. Let that court decide which of you is the truly unfit parent. You can't. I can, and I will, but I'll offer you another path. Giovanni's voice lost a fraction of its edge. Walk away now. Leave Jessica in peace. Cease this charade of sudden concern for Lily after 5 years of absolute neglect. Do this, and these papers are never submitted. You resume your life, and this conversation is forgotten. The silence hung heavy in the air. Tyler stared at the envelope, at me, and finally back at Giovanni. Fine! He flung the papers to the concrete floor. She's yours. They're both yours. But when it all goes to hell, don't you dare come looking for my sympathy. He stalked off, his steps echoing in the empty garage. Giovanni held his position until Tyler's engine roared to life and faded into the distance. Only then did he turn to me. Are you all right? I was not. I was trembling, the adrenaline storming through me. You had him investigated? Had lawyers prepare all this? When did you do it? The instant I knew he would become a problem. Giovanni bent to retrieve the discarded envelope. I do not wait for threats to become actions, Jessica. I remove them before they can harm the people I value. And what will you do when you are the threat? The words escaped, sharper than I meant. When your world is the one that endangers Lily, then I will remove that threat as well. His eyes locked with mine. Even if it requires removing myself from your world. But that is a decision you must make, Jessica. I cannot make it for you. Franco cleared his throat softly. I will be in the car, leaving us alone together. We stood in the stark cold of the garage as I tried to untangle what I wanted, what I could endure, which risks were worth taking, and which would ultimately shatter us. Take me home, I whispered at last. To your penthouse. We should talk. Giovanni simply nodded, extending his arm. I accepted it, and we moved toward his SUV as one, while I struggled to find the words to tell him I had already chosen. And that choice scared me more than anything Tyler could ever conceive. 2 weeks went by in a haze of new patterns and delicate mediations between the life I had known and the one we were now creating. I'd brought most of my things to the penthouse, but held onto my apartment, a sanctuary for when I needed to breathe, or for when Lily had friends over whose families needed no knowledge of the complicated man who had entered our lives. Giovanni adapted to the beautiful mayhem of life with a 5-year-old with remarkable ease. He discovered that Lily required precisely 3 stories before bed, that she would only consume vegetables if they were cleverly disguised in pasta sauce, and that Tuesday mornings were a struggle because she yearned for the freedom of the weekend. He sat beside me at a parent-teacher conference, folded into a chair meant for a person of half his stature, as Mrs. Rodriguez lauded Lily's reading skills. "She is a very bright child," the teacher had noted, her gaze shifting between us with clear admiration. "It is so good to see her flourishing with 2 involved parents." I offered no correction, nor did Giovanni. Camila adjusted to our new reality with incredible grace. She still cared for Lily after school, only now one of Giovanni's men would collect them and drive them to me, either at the penthouse or my old apartment on days I craved the comfort of the familiar. The driver, a quiet man named Anthony, who adored Lily as if she were his own kin, quickly became a part of our strange new family. "This is unreal," Camilla murmured one afternoon as Lily sketched at the kitchen island. 2 weeks passed, you were a single mother struggling with rent. Now you're in a penthouse with a man who employs a security detail. I know. I poured her some tea, a small tradition that had survived the upheaval. Does it make me an awful person if I say I'm happy? It makes you a human being. She gave my hand a squeeze. Just be cautious, Jess. Joy that arrives this quickly can vanish just as fast. My own family's response was far more tangled. My mother was on the phone every day, caught between being proud of me for finding a successful man and worried about the shadows surrounding him. Lauren, to my surprise, offered her unconditional support. She had asked us to dinner on Saturday for her 32nd birthday to be held at Giovanni's latest restaurant in River North. I really want to meet him, she had explained over the phone. Not as the enigma from Sophia's wedding, but as the man who has brought the smile back to my sister's face. Saturday came with an October bite that hinted at the approaching winter. I chose my outfit with care, a dress of forest green Giovanni had purchased for me despite my objections to his spending. Lily was in burgundy velvet, her hair in intricate braids that had taken me 40 minutes to weave. You are beautiful, Giovanni said, his voice low as he met us in the living room. He stood in charcoal gray without a tie, his top button undone to project a fusion of sophistication and threat. Both of them. Mr. Giovanni, are we going to your restaurant? Lily asked, brimming with energy. The one that has the amazing breadsticks? Another place entirely, this one focused on Northern Italian fare. He knelt to match her height, but I had the chef make some special breadsticks just for you. Fioraldi's River North was a corner establishment, its vast windows gazing out at the Chicago River. A warm glow bathed the pavement, and from outside, Jessica could hear the soft murmur of voices and good cheer. For the family meal, Giovanni had secured a private room, offering them seclusion from the main dining area. Lauren and Daniel, her husband, were the first to show. Her sister was elegant as always. Dark hair cascaded in waves that likely cost more than Jessica's food budget for a week. Yet the smile she offered in her embrace was utterly sincere. Clear's throat. "Happy birthday," Jessica said, offering the gift she'd painstakingly chosen. A first-run copy of a beloved childhood story discovered in a second-hand bookshop. "Jess," she unwrapped it gingerly, her eyes widening. "This had to have cost." "It didn't. I have a connection." Jessica winked. "What matters is that you adore it." Daniel took Giovanni's hand with the precise grip of a surgeon who held lives in his palms each day. "It's good to finally meet you for real. Lauren has been quite intrigued." "As is her right." Giovanni's reply was seamless. "I would also be wary if my sister suddenly showed up with a new man." Her parents came next. Her father looked constrained in a suit he rarely donned. Clear's throat. Her mother's gaze was already dissecting the room. They had met Giovanni briefly during Sophia's wedding, yet this was a different scenario. This was an inspection to see if the man with their daughter measured up. Mr. and Mrs. Reed. Giovanni welcomed them with a classic practiced grace. "I appreciate you joining us for Lauren's birthday celebration. This is your establishment," her mother stated, taking his hand. "We are the ones who should be thanking you." Sophia and her new spouse arrived fashionably behind schedule, radiant with newlywed joy. The final guest to appear was Vanessa. At 8 months along, her pregnancy was a prominent feature. She was by herself, Tyler's absence glaring, and her presence caused a knot of complex feelings to tighten in Jessica's chest. "Jessica." Her kiss on the cheek was a polite formality. "You're looking good." "You too." The words were not wholly honest. She appeared drained, a weariness that was rooted deeper than just pregnancy. "How have you been feeling?" "Huge, awkward, just want this to be done." A hand rested on her round stomach. "Tyler sends his apologies." "A business trip?" The fabrication was transparent. Tyler was dodging this meal to avoid both Giovanni and Jessica. A part of her felt relieved. Another part wished he could witness what he had abandoned. Dinner was a multi-course affair, each plate surpassing the last in artistry. Giovanni had clearly tasked his chef with making an impression, a goal they met with ease. The talk began to flow once the early stiffness dissipated. Her father, a man of few personal words, was soon deep in a discussion of architecture with Giovanni. Lauren and Daniel posed sharp questions about the restaurant trade. Even her mother appeared captivated by how Giovanni kept every wine glass full and had procured a special mocktail for Lily in a grown-up glass. Yet it was the sight of Giovanni with Lily that truly seemed to win the family over. The girl had become drowsy after her meal, nestled against his side on the bench. He shifted instinctively, an arm settling on her tiny shoulders, all while continuing his chat with her father and stroking her hair. The motion was so innate, it seemed a habit of 1,000 repetitions. "He's wonderful with her," Lauren whispered to Jessica during a trip to the restroom. "I wasn't expecting that." "Me neither," Jessica checked her own reflection, adjusting her dress. "But he is. He's so patient and gentle, and he makes her feel important." Because she is important. To him. Lauren's gaze met hers in the mirror. "Jess, I've worried about you for so long. Seeing you work to the point of collapse, raising Lily by yourself, pushing away all help. But looking at you now, something's changed. You seem lighter, as if you're finally permitting yourself to be happy." "I'm attempting to." Jessica's throat constricted. "Is that all right? Am I allowed happiness with a man like him?" "A man like him?" Lauren pivoted to face her directly. You mean a successful man who gives you respect, who obviously cherishes your child, who saw our critical family and decided you were worth facing that storm?" She held Jessica's shoulders. "Jess, he isn't the issue. Tyler was. Mom's standards were. Your belief that you deserved less was the issue." They went back to find dessert being presented. A stunning tiramisu birthday cake made Lily's eyes pop with wonder. Lauren extinguished her candles encircled by her family, and for the first time in 5 years, Jessica didn't feel like an outsider. She felt like she was home. Vanessa departed soon after the cake, citing fatigue, but she paused by Jessica's chair before leaving. "I am glad you are happy," she murmured. "I truly mean it. I believed I was taking what you wanted, but perhaps you avoided a disaster. Tyler is not," she paused, a hand on her side. "He is not the person I thought." "Vanessa, stop!" She raised a hand. "I made my bed, you made yours. I just needed to say that I can see you got the superior outcome." "Do you wait?" She gestured toward Giovanni, who was teaching Lily the art of folding a napkin into a swan. "Don't let that one go. Men of his caliber are scarce." She vanished before Jessica could form a reply, leaving her with unspoken questions and an unexpected wave of empathy. The night slowly wound to its conclusion. Her parents thanked Giovanni profusely. Her father even ventured that they should dine together again soon. Sophia and her husband proposed a double date. Lauren gave Jessica a tight embrace and whispered her total approval. They drove homeward through the sparkling vista of Chicago at night with Lily sound asleep in her car seat. Giovanni's hand reached for hers in the quiet space, their fingers interlacing in the gloom. "Your family approves of me," he remarked, a hint of astonishment in his voice. "They adore you. There is a distinction." She squeezed his hand. "You won them over, particularly my mother, which I thought was an impossible feat. I had an ally." He glanced toward Lily. "It's difficult to resent someone when their daughter has already laid claim to you." "Is that what she did?" "She informed your mother tonight that I showed her how to sketch buildings and that she plans to be an architect like her mother." His tone had a warmth she was coming to recognize. "Then she declared I was her favorite adult, right after you and Camilla." Her heart fractured just a little wider. "Giovanni, I know your thoughts, that we have to be cautious, that she is growing too fond, that if this ends, she will be heartbroken." He regarded her in the fleeting glow of streetlights. "But Jessica, what if this succeeds? What if this is how 3 souls stumble into becoming a family?" She possessed no response for him. But seeing him carry Lily to her room later, settling her into bed with the expert care of a seasoned father, she began to think that perhaps, just perhaps, they were creating something with permanence. That evening, with Lily asleep and the penthouse still, Giovanni met her on the terrace overlooking the water. "Thank you," he spoke, his arms enfolding her from behind, "for allowing me into your world, for entrusting me with her, for giving this a try when all logic screamed against it. Thank you for making it impossible for me not to." She relaxed into his hold. "For these last 2 weeks, for this night, for every single moment you show me that storybook endings might be real if one is brave enough to pursue them." They remained there, watching the city's lights dance on the lake, and she let herself envision a future that was not just a passing chapter. where the man holding her was not just someone she was falling for, but the one she had already fallen for, where her child would have a father who chose her rather than one who had left. 2 weeks, that was the sum of it since the warehouse incident. Clears throat? Since Giovanni first proposed, they make this genuine. Yet time held no meaning when a thing felt so fundamentally right. When returning home was stepping into a place where a man waited who saw her as the center of his universe, and a daughter slept above, finally feeling secure. It was possible Camilla was correct. Happiness so abrupt could vanish with equal speed. But that night, held in Giovanni's embrace beneath Chicago's autumn sky, she concluded the risk was one worth taking, because some things and some people were worth the fight, and Giovanni Fioraldi, with his perilous world and tender hands, and the way he loved her daughter as if she were his own, was a risk she would gladly take. That Saturday night carried a chill, a whisper of the Chicago winter to come. 3 weeks had slipped by since Sophia's wedding, a period that felt like both an eternity and a heartbeat. Giovanni insisted on a dinner at his Gold Coast jewel, Fioraldi's on Astor, for what he enigmatically termed new beginnings. I had come to understand his version of formal meant commandeering the entire second level of his most coveted restaurant, a place with a Michelin star, a 6-month wait list, and a clientele of the city's most powerful. You shouldn't have reserved the whole floor, I had argued when he revealed the plan. I need this to be private, was his only reply, his face an impenetrable mask that concealed his intentions. Trust me. And so I stood in our shared penthouse, guiding Lily into a velvet dress the color of rich burgundy, fighting the frantic flutter in my own chest. A profound weight hung in the air tonight, a significance I could not yet name. "Mom, you're messing with my hair," Lily protested, twisting away from my restless hands. "Mr. Giovanni gave me an important job, and I have to look perfect." "An important job?" I adjusted her collar. "What kind of job?" "It's a secret," she whispered, her eyes alight with the pure joy of a 5-year-old holding classified knowledge. "A really good one. The best secret ever." At that moment, Giovanni stood in the doorway, a striking figure in a charcoal suit that was likely worth more than my former car. His amber eyes took us in with a warm, open admiration. My 2 favorite people looking absolutely stunning. He knelt to Lily's height. "Are you prepared for your special task this evening?" "Yes," she bounced. "I practiced all week like you told me to." "Practiced what?" I glanced between them, my suspicion piqued. "You will see," Giovanni said, rising to offer me his arm. "Shall we?" When we arrived, the restaurant glittered like a treasure chest, its warm light spilling onto tables set with crisp white linen and crystal that shone like captured starlight. Yet the second floor, our private space for the night, was transformed beyond a mere dining area. Delicate lights were threaded along the exposed brick, and candles flickered from every surface. In the center, a single, long table was set for 15 people, each place marked with a name written in exquisite script. My family was already there. My parents stood by the windows, my father gesturing at the Chicago skyline as my mother watched with a rare look of contentment. Lauren and Daniel were speaking with Sophia and her husband. Even Vanessa had made it, her pregnancy at nearly 9 months undeniable, looking weary but here. "Jessica." Sophia hurried to me, enveloping me in a hug, radiating the bliss of a newlywed. "I'm so glad you could make it. Giovanni said tonight was important." I honestly don't know what this is about, I confessed. That's because you're awful at being surprised, Lauren added with a kiss to my cheek. Just try to relax and enjoy it. Knowing him, it will be unforgettable. Camilla then appeared from the kitchen, a welcome surprise. You didn't think I would miss this, did you? She held me close. Giovanni called me 3 days ago and insisted I be here. It seems everyone is conspiring against me, I murmured, unable to suppress a smile. Franco and his wife Maria, whom I'd only met twice, were the last to arrive. He gave Giovanni a brief, meaningful nod before they were seated. If everyone would take their seats, Giovanni announced, his voice holding a natural command. We have much to commemorate tonight. The meal that followed was a masterpiece, each course presented and explained by Giovanni, who transitioned seamlessly between host and proprietor. He had seated me at the head of the table, with himself at my right and Lily to my left. My family surrounded us, and the room buzzed with laughter that felt blessedly real. During the main course, my mother leaned forward. Giovanni, this is simply extraordinary. Jessica is so fortunate to have found a man as accomplished as you. The luck is all mine, Mrs. Reed. His hand found mine beneath the table. Your daughter shows me every day that accomplishments are empty without someone to share them with. My father, a quiet observer until now, finally spoke. You are good to her, to both of them. That is all a father can ask for. The simple approval in his tone tightened my throat. After 5 years of treating my life like a personal failure, he was accepting us. All of us. Dessert was served as the sky outside turned to ink, the city becoming a sea of distant lights. Chocolate soufflés, each dusted with gold leaf, were placed before every guest. Before we indulge, Giovanni said, standing and tapping his glass. I have something I need to say, or more precisely to ask. My pulse stopped. All around me, knowing smiles bloomed. I was the only one unaware. 3 weeks ago, I went to a wedding as a mere business obligation, expecting nothing. His gaze met mine. Instead, I found Jessica at a table alone, trying to be invisible when she deserved to be cherished. He moved to stand by my side. I made her a proposition, a false arrangement to save face for us both, and Jessica, being both practical and courageous, agreed. We danced. We pretended. We played our parts. Lily giggled next to me, a party to the secret. But somewhere between that dance and now, the pretense became real. The arrangement became a relationship. And I fell irrevocably in love with a woman who works 12-hour shifts saving children, who raises a remarkable daughter with humor, and who told a mobster he couldn't threaten kids in her city. Tears were already falling freely down my face. Giovanni knelt, producing a velvet box from his pocket. Jessica Reed, I'm no longer offering you a counterfeit deal. I am offering you everything that is real. My world, my heart, my name. I'm offering a life where you are never invisible but are celebrated every single day. He opened the box, and the ring inside scattered candlelight into a spray of rainbows. Will you marry me? The room went utterly still, every sound held in suspense. Every gaze was on me. Say yes, Mom, Lily urged, bouncing in her seat. Say yes so I can do my special job. A gentle ripple of laughter broke the tension. I looked at this man, who in 3 weeks had become my foundation. The man who made my daughter pancakes and faced down criminals, all while looking at me as if I were the moon. Yes, the word escaped, thick with tears. Of course, yes. Giovanni slid the perfect-fitting ring onto my finger, then drew me to my feet for a kiss as applause erupted around us. As we parted, Lily tugged his sleeve. "Now is it time?" "It's time," he confirmed, lifting her onto a chair so all could see. From a small purse, she took out a velvet pouch, and from it, 2 simple gold bands that gleamed in the light. "These are the wedding rings," she proclaimed. "Mr. Giovanni said I'm the ring bearer, but I get to hold them now so everyone knows it's real, and I get to be in the family forever." She handed them over with the profound gravity only a 5-year-old possesses. The table erupted in another wave of laughter and emotional applause. "Forever," Giovanni affirmed, his gaze toward Lily so full of love it made my heart ache. "You are both stuck with me now." The rest of the night was a happy haze of champagne toasts and my mother insisting she was not crying through her tears. Lauren held me in a breathless hug, whispering she'd never seen me so happy. Sophia and her husband offered their help in planning everything. Even Vanessa approached me, her hand on her belly. "I meant what I said," she murmured. "I am genuinely happy for you. Tyler is—" She trailed off, seeking the right phrase. "Tyler is Tyler, but Giovanni is something else. Hold on to him." "I will," I promised. "How are you, really?" "Tired, pregnant, and questioning every decision I've ever made," she answered with a dry smile. "But that's for another day. Tonight is for you, finally getting everything you deserve." As the city lights of Chicago painted a fractured mosaic below, she stood with Giovanni on the restaurant's terrace, a world away from the music inside. There, Lily danced with Franco, her laughter a fleeting melody on the October air. 3 weeks, she whispered into the night. It felt a lifetime ago, sitting at a wedding, cloaked in self-pity. Now she was promised to a man she was certain she had loved since their first hesitant dance, a soul's recognition. He enveloped her from behind, his arms a silent promise. "My mother believed in that," he murmured, "that meant to be souls, find each other without delay. Your mother would have embraced this." Her hands came to rest over his. "All of it," she confirmed. "The beautiful chaos, the tangled paths, the single mother with a 5-year-old daughter. She would have adored you." His voice was a delicate weave of warmth and loss, and she would have said that the most precious things require a fight, especially when they are complicated. "So, where do we go from here?" She turned within his embrace to meet his gaze. "We map out a wedding," he began. "Find a way to braid my tangled world with your ordered one, and tell Lily her new father not only runs restaurants but holds meetings with men of consequence." One day after another. His kiss on her forehead sealed the vow. "We will forge something true from the artifice where we began. We will prove that fables can take root in the harshest of realities." Inside, the melody shifted. The DJ, a man Giovanni had hired for the occasion, began to play the song from Sophia's wedding, the same notes that had scored their first dance, back when it was all a charade. "Dance with me," Giovanni offered, his hand extended just as it had been 3 weeks prior at table 12. One more time. But this time it is real. She placed her hand in his. They returned to a room filled with their future, where Lily spun with Camilla, where her parents' eyes held genuine joy, where their world had gathered to witness a pretense blossom into the truest love of her life. Giovanni guided her to the center of the floor. His hand found the small of her back, the same place it had landed 3 weeks ago. But tonight there was no script, no arrangement, no facade constructed to salvage pride. Tonight there was only a man who had seen her when she felt invisible. and a woman who understood that life's greatest gifts are often wrapped in the complexities one never anticipates. "I love you," she breathed against his chest, their bodies swaying to the rhythm of the room's joy. "I love you both," he answered. "My family, my home, my entire world. 3 weeks." In that sliver of time, her universe had been remade. A fabricated husband had become the partner of a lifetime. A man who was once a stranger had become the father her daughter deserved. And held in Giovanni's arms, encircled by the people who mattered most, she finally saw the truth the tarot cards might have revealed, that the cosmos sometimes places the right soul in your path at the precise moment of need. That love answers to no timeline, no logic, no rule ever written. That a single night of pretending to be a man's wife could lead to an eternity of being his. And that, she understood, was the most profound magic of all.
She walked into that wedding already losing. Not because she was ugly, not because she was weak, not because she had failed in any way that truly mattered. She was losing because the room had decided her role before she even sat down. Single mother, family disappointment. The woman who had once been on the path to something bigger then got derailed by pregnancy, betrayal, and money problems. So they pushed her to the side, dressed the insult in silken chandeliers, and called it family. Table 12, overflow section, near the kitchen. That tiny detail said everything. And that was the first life lesson. A person does not become small just because a room decides to treat them that way. She sat there while everyone else got to play the polished version of success. Married couples, rich cousins, respectable futures. Meanwhile, the man who abandoned her when she was pregnant stood there with her own cousin acting like history had been edited in his favor. He had moved on in the most insulting way possible, comfortably. That is what made the moment so nasty. It was not just betrayal, it was betrayal with good lighting. Then came the second lesson. The people who hurt someone the most often come back only when they think she still belongs beneath them. Her ex did not approach her because he loved her. He did not approach her because he regretted what he did. He approached because he saw her alone. That is the psychology of weak men. They return when the woman looks vulnerable, not when they have grown. He wanted to poke the wound and confirm it was still open. He wanted proof that he still had power. That was why his cruelty came so easily. He spoke like a man trying to remind her, "Stay in the place I left you." And then the plot twist kicked in. Across the ballroom stood a man who looked like danger in a tailored suit. Calm, controlled, expensive. The type of man who did not ask the room for permission to exist. He watched her not with pity, not with gossip, but with recognition. He saw exactly what was happening. A woman trying not to crack while being publicly reduced to a cautionary tale. Now here comes the third lesson, and this one hits hard. Sometimes a person's life changes the moment someone sees the pain she's been trying to hide. He did not start by saving her life. He started by saving her dignity. That is why the fake proposal worked so well. Not fake marriage forever. Not fantasy nonsense. Just one dance, one performance, one moment in which she would no longer look abandoned. And notice this carefully. The first transformation was not romance. It was posture. It was visibility. It was her standing up and taking the hand that told the room, she is not available for humiliation tonight. That is how comebacks really begin. Not with a crown, with a decision. She danced with him, and suddenly the people who had dismissed her started recalculating. Her family leaned in, her ex got rattled, her cousin got nervous. Same woman, same face, same history, different presentation. Brutal truth. Society often respects what it believes is already wanted. That is ugly, but it is real. Then the story got crazier. The fake connection pulled real danger toward her. Criminal factions, leverage, threats, men at her door. A war she never asked to enter. And this is where the easy version of the story dies, because now it is not just sad woman meets powerful man. Now it becomes a lesson about cost. Every new door closes one danger and opens another. The ballroom was emotional violence. The street became literal violence. But what changed in her was bigger than the threat. She stopped being passive. She stopped acting like life was just something happening to her. She protected her daughter. She made hard calls. She kept moving. Even when she was terrified, she kept choosing. That is massive. Because here's the fourth lesson. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is a frightened person refusing to surrender her role in the story. She had every reason to run. She had every reason to say, "Oh, this is too much, I'm out." But by then, she had seen too much truth. She had seen who her ex really was. She had seen how shallow family respect could be. She had seen that the dangerous man was somehow the first man in a long time who treated her daughter's safety like sacred law. That kind of contrast changes a woman permanently. And let us talk about the real revenge, because this story understood revenge perfectly. The best revenge was never making Tyler jealous. That was just a bonus cutscene. The real revenge was that she stopped auditioning for people who had already failed her. That is the fifth lesson. Healing begins the second a person no longer begs old betrayers to rewrite their opinion. She did not win because another man wanted her. She won because she finally moved like someone who understood her own value. The new man did not create that value. He revealed where it had been buried. Big difference. Once she saw herself clearly, the ex lost access. The family lost authority. Shame lost its throne. And the final twist? The relationship that started as performance became the first thing in her life that felt honest. That is why this story lands, because life is weird like that. The staged moment exposed the real emotion. The lie pointed at the truth. So what are the life lessons this woman carried out of that chaos? A humiliating room is not a verdict. An ex returning is not closure. Being chosen is not the same as being valued. Fear does not cancel courage. And the most dangerous moment for the people who underestimated her was the moment she stopped agreeing with them. She entered that wedding as the cautionary tale. She left as the plot twist. And sometimes that is exactly how life announces a comeback.